Greetings, Arkham investigators. This is Agent 51 coming to you with a classified intel report from a secure location in the Asia-Pacific region. I recently heard from my fellow agent, Odin, the innkeeper, that this classified intel report has been kept from you in your current condition in the mother country with the virus containing you. So I thought it only appropriate to release this report to give you the knowledge you need in order to get through this current crisis and delay the inevitable for a little while longer. Weaver of the Cosmos is the sixth and final Mythos pack for the Dream Eater cycle and brings to an end the eighth module adventure in the cycle. I'm not going to reveal any spoilers from the pack itself. We'll just concentrate on reviewing the cards in the pack, investigator cards. I'm aware you may have seen some of the text for these, but you probably haven't seen the art and the cards themselves. So I thought I'd just go through them, and we'll talk a little bit about my first impressions. I haven't had time, obviously, to do any in-depth analysis on this. So the first card is a Guardian card. It's called Spiritual Resolve. It's a 3-cost card, and it costs 5 experience points. And it's a ritual traded a myriad card, meaning that you get 3 copies of it in the pack. And obviously has a willpower pip, and it's it has 3 health, 3 horror, and takes up a mystic slot. It's a quick action. Discard a copy of Spiritual Resolve from your hand. Heal all damage and harm from this copy of Spiritual Resolve. So on the surface, this looks very powerful. However, I think my first impression of it is that you would need to have at least 2 copies of it to make it worthwhile, which means you would have to spend 10 experience points and then have a way of ensuring that you've got both copies in your hand. So I think it's possibly going to be a luxury that many investigators are not going to be able to afford until perhaps very late in the campaign cycle, when you'd have the 10 experience to burn on it, and also a way of finding the second copy. I think a third copy is highly unlikely, so I think that's going to be the major drawback in this card. So the Seeker card for this pack is Abigail Foreman. She's a 3-cost ally, Miskatonic traded. She costs 4 experience and has an intellect and agility pip. She has a quick action: attach a tome asset in your play area to Abigail Foreman, or switch a tome asset in your play area with an attached asset. The asset attached to her takes up no hand slots, limit 1 attached asset. And then as a reaction, after you resolve an action ability on an attached tome asset, exhaust Abigail Foreman, resolve its effects again. She has 1 damage, 2 horror, and takes up an ally slot. I think pretty much my impression of this card is it's only going to be useful for Daisy. I don't think many of the other investigators are running a lot of tomes these days, so really only be useful in a tome running perhaps Mystic or Seeker. So it's going to see limited play, I think, especially with the cost. The next Seeker card is a skill card called the Eye of Truth. It costs 5 experience, but has 4 multi-icons. It's a spell, practice traded. So it can be used by investigators that you can use spells. If the skill test is on a treachery and the test is successful, add that treachery to the victory display and attach the Eye of Truth to it. While attached, the Eye of Truth contributes its skill icon to all tests on copies of that attached treachery. This could be extremely powerful in some of the adventures, and I'm thinking in the Circle Undone and the Dream Eaters, where there are really annoying treachery cards that can bug you and cause your life to be a misery. So the ability of being able to attach this to copies of that card is going to be really helpful. I think obviously the 5 experience is a drawback, but this could be really useful for investigators that have low low willpower, and really need this boost in order to beat treacheries. It could also be useful for, strength or ability-based treacheries that some of the more intellectual investigators are going to have trouble beating. So this could see play. The next card, Shining Trapezohedron, is a mystic card. It's 1 cost, item and relic traded. It costs 4 experience. It's an asset. Takes up the accessory slot. And as a reaction, when you would pay the cost of a spell card, exhaust Shining Trapezohedron. Instead, test Willpower X, where X is that card's resource cost. If you succeed, its resource cost is considered paid. If you fail, cancel the playing of that card without paying any of its costs, including its action cost. For the remainder of the round, you cannot play copies of that card. Obviously, this is going to be really useful in a mystic deck where you have high intellect and are relying on spells. I'm thinking somebody like Luke or any of the spellcasters, where they're going to have Sinhubit's Key or something other else out to buff their intellect, and they're going to already have a high intellect. So then when you want to reuse your shriveling or pay for your shriveling, and it's going to be a cost of 2 or 3, passing that sort of test is going to be dead easy. So you're really going to then see the benefits of this card. Problem being is, it takes up a card slot and costs 4 experience. Is that really worth it? You probably would need to play 2 spells in a round to get the economy out of it, as opposed to something like Uncage the Soul. So I'm not sure how much play this will see, although there may be certain situations with certain investigators where it would be justified, and that'll remain to be seen. The next mystic card is Mind's Eye. It's a 3 cost asset, costs 2 experience, has a willpower pip. It's ritual traded myriad, so you get 3 copies of it in the pack. It has 3 secrets as uses and reaction. When you would test your intellect's fight or agility, spend a secret and test your willpower instead. And a quick action is discard a copy of Mind's Eye from your hand to place 2 secrets on this copy of Mind's Eye. So it can recharge itself, noting that it takes up 2 mystic slots, 2 arcane slots, sorry. So again, this could be useful, could be really useful in a Luke deck or an Agnes deck where you're going to be heavily relying on willpower to do everything. With using shriveling to fight, and perhaps Sixth Sense for investigating. This, in order to fight or evade enemies, you could use this. And I mean, Luke, for example, already runs a number of cards that can recharge his gate box, so this may be useful as well. You'd get some synergy in any kind of mystic deck where you're running cards to recharge secrets already. So this could see some play. Obviously, it would be 4 cost to have 2 copies of it to be able to recharge. So whether or not that will be a strategy or not remains to be seen. Okay, the first rogue card is Joey the Rat Vigil. It's a unique ally asset. Takes up the ally slot, 2 cost, 3 experience with an intellect and agility pip. He's ally and criminal traded, and his fast action is to spend 1 resource, choose an item asset from your hand and play it, paying its costs, or discard an asset item from play and gain 2 resources. It takes 3 damage and 2 horror. Obviously, it's better than the original Joey the Rat card, but whether it sees any play in rogue decks remains to be seen. I can't really comment, not being really familiar with a lot of the rogue builds currently, but I'm certainly not jumping at this card. It looks like a bit of a mediocre card to me, but we'll see. The next second row card is Sawed Off Shotgun. It's a 3-cost asset, takes up a hand slot. It's 5 experience points with a fight and agility icon. It's item, weapon, firearm, illicit traded. It only has 2 ammo, which is obviously a major drawback, and it's spend 1 ammo for fight. Instead of standard damage, its attacks deal 1 damage for each point you succeed by, to a minimum of 1, a maximum of 6. If you fail and would damage another investigator, this attack deals 1 damage for each point you fail by, to a minimum of 1 or a maximum of 6. I think this is very mediocre compared to some of the other weapons out there for a 5 cost, but I'm not sure if it will see any play in particular road decks, but it's certainly not jumping out at me at being amazing. I think if you're able to succeed by a significant margin, I guess the damage boost is good, but the 2 ammo is a major drawback, unless you've got some way of like using Finn or something where you can get your ammo doubled or refilled in some way. It's going to be fairly limited use, but I could be wrong there. And the Survivor asset, this is a very interesting card, Nightmare Bauble. It's a 1-cost accessory asset with a willpower and multi-icon pips. It's an item, charm, cursed, limit 1 per deck, so you only get 1 copy of it in the pack, and it's forced after Nightmare Bauble enters play. Search your bonded cards for 3 copies of Dream Parasite and attach them to Nightmare Bauble. When Nightmare Bauble leaves play, set each attached Dream Parasite aside out of play. And there's a reaction when you reveal an autofail chaos token. Shuffle and attach Dream Parasite into your deck and cancel that token. So, and this is the Dream Parasite weakness. It's a skill, curse, with 2 multi-icons, and it's bonded to Nightmare Bauble. Obviously, while Dream Parasite is in your hand, you must commit it to the next skill test you perform if able. This skill's icons subtract from your skill value instead of adding to it, and if this skill fails, take a damage in a horror. So this is interesting. Obviously, it's going to cancel an auto-fail, which if you get an auto-fail at the wrong time, it can ruin your game or ruin your day. So I guess it's very, very powerful in terms of being able to cancel that. Especially if you got an investigator with a high skill value, say for investigation or fight or something where a -2 is not going to phase you. So you know, if you're Luke using 6th Sense, you might be investigating at a 7, so -2 is going to have you investigating it at a 5. So you might be doing a critical action. You can cancel that auto fail and then do another action to investigate something where -2 is not going to hurt you at all. Or worst case scenario, you take a damage in a horror. So I think this could be extremely powerful, and being 1 cost and only 3 XP, it'll be interesting to see this. This may well see some play. And the final card of the pack is Scavenging version 2. It's a 1-cost asset, costs 2 experience points, and has 2 intellect icon pips, talent traded. And it's a reaction after you successfully investigate by 2 or more, exhaust scavenging, choose an item card in your discard pile, and either add it to your hand or play it, paying its costs. So this one is obviously better than the original, but with the 2 XP costs, it remain to be seen whether this actually sees any play. I don't think the original core set card is seeing much play these days, just because there's so many other better cards available. And I think this pretty much sums up my view of most of the cards in this pack, in that there looks like some really interesting cards in there that could have some interesting synergies with certain deck builds, but overall I think There's a number of mediocre cards in there just because there's so many other better cards in the card pool at the moment, and it's always not so much a case of will this work for me, but what am I going to take out in order to run this? And quite often, you know, that's where some of these newer cards fall down if they're not really good enough to replace some of the excellent cards that we've already seen in this cycle and in the Circle Undone cycle. So that brings to an end this classified intel report. I hope you found it useful. I hope that it can assist you in staying hidden from the great old ones and all of the agents of Mythos in this difficult time where we're all contained and locked down and under surveillance. So I hope that you stay safe and enjoy yourselves as much as you can, and I will return to you as soon as I am able. This is Agent 51 out.